Okay.
And we're live.
Would somebody like to offer us a word of prayer?
I would be glad to.
Thank you.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for the opportunity that we have to continue our education. We ask you to bless us that we might have a good discussion and we might be able to help each other understand the case. And we are so grateful for the willingness that we have of everyone to participate. We say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Karen.
Welcome.
So what did everyone think about the case study this week? Like your initial knee-jerk reaction on the case study about Neil Armstrong?
Armstrong is a loser.
Oh
That's pretty much what I was like. Oh, Neil Armstrong is a dirtbag. That's kind of my initial thought.
You mean Lance, not Neil.
Not Neil.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Lance.
Neil
Right.
Armstrong
Wrong
is awesome.
Lance.
Neil Armstrong too, you know.
Yeah.
The moonwalk is all fake. I don't care what they say. Just think.
Oh. Yeah.
I'm sure it's not the first time that's happened.
Yeah, Lance Armstrong, the bicyclist,
Yeah.
not the other one.
Go ahead, Karen.
As opposed to Kristen Armstrong, who's a bicyclist that has won some gold medals that lives here in Boise.
Yeah, probably
No,
not
that's
him
cool.
either.
Yeah.
I don't think she's been doping. So
That's good. You don't think he's been doping?
she, Kristen.
Oh, she?
Oh,
Oh, okay.
No, different bicyclist. Yeah.
Well, that's good,
Yeah.
at least.
He's such a
Yeah.
jerk. Oh my gosh.
It's better to not to dope.
Yes. I had the same thought that my first thought was, I was like, oh, we have to read this? I was like, he sucks. I was like,
This guy sucks.
I was like, he cheated people in America out of like their hopes and dreams that they had about everything that was good and American about his like success, which was horrible to me. So as like a way to kind of start off, what is Armstrong's legacy? I think you could maybe take this two different ways. Maybe the legacy that he would have left had no one either found out he was doping or if he hadn't doped in the first place. And then the legacy he actually leaves behind due to the fact of what he did and what everyone now knows about him.
I'd say that his legacy.
Well, his legacy is just the. Oh, go ahead, Russell.
I mean, I think it's kind of the legacy of kind of one of those things where, you know, you find out something about somebody you really looked up to and it's really disappointing. So I think his legacy was almost just one of distrust and like, you know, even the people you consider the greatest can fall, unfortunately.
He reminds me
Not
of
a good
that
legacy.
that guy in Australia that killed his girlfriend.
Oh,
Do you remember?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
No, yeah.
the guy that ran on those funny little leg things. He just lied about it for so long. Lied. And Lance Armstrong did the exact same thing. It's like, oh my goodness, everybody else knows you did it. Just admit it and be done with it.
And then he's still fighting it today. I mean, he's
Well,
fighting a suit against him. Instead of like settling it and paying something, he's going through court still trying to fight it. And this is like later, he's still fighting against it, which is what makes it worse. I mean, all of the other guys that were on the drugs and doing the stuff with him have come forward. They've settled their things that they've done. They've paid their dues. So now they can go on, you know,
yeah.
with in conscience to some degree, but he's still. He even got his court case delayed at 6 months, you know, because his lawyer can't be there, you know. I don't know what that means exactly.
That's horrible. I think it makes me think of when people that have a lot of money just like delay the courts and like abuse the system and like abuse their power and money to like get what they want at the end of the day because they are untrustworthy.
He doesn't seem to have learned anything.
Yeah.
From what it appears in a public view. I guess he's wrote a book or something, though, maybe.
Yeah, and there was a
But
movie.
quite frankly,
Did
I don't want to. Well, probably not.
Did he cheat on that one too?
Yeah.
What was the name of the book? This job is
The
dope.
thing is, are you going to go out and buy it and support him? No.
No,
Nobody should go and buy it.
no. I'm
We
looking.
should all legally download it so he doesn't get anything from it. Kidding.
That
No,
should
because
set
then
a
that
good
would be you being a criminal. Because the thing to learn from this is not to
Wait,
go
no,
there
yeah,
even
no.
once.
No.
Yeah, no. Not a good idea. I'm trying to find what this book is called now. I'm like really curious.
This reminds me, and this was an example I was going to use in our discussion this week, but I totally forgot about it until just now. But I know you guys probably don't remember back in the 80s, Jane Fonda, when she came out with her very first Jane Fonda workout tape. Anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody with me on this?
Yeah,
I've
I
heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
remember
I've heard
her.
of that, she says.
No. I mean, like, I didn't like go and buy it or anything like
Yeah.
that. I remember.
Well, I
Yeah.
did, and I used it religiously every day, like 6 days a week for I don't know how many
Wow.
years, probably 20 years. I'm not kidding you. Every
No.
single day, I'm not kidding
Wow.
That's awesome.
you, and all the time. And I thought, of course, I was a real size 8 then, but I was religious, thinking, if I just keep this up, then I'm going to be nice and skinny like Jane Fonda. Well, then years later, we find out she's bulimic. And I'm thinking, really? That's so unfair.
Nice.
All this work I'm putting into to maintain, thinking that if I do it like she's doing it, and I'll be able to look like she does. And her life was a lie.
Mm.
Yep.
So I quit exercising. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Not really. But it made me mad.
Was she the
because
one that had the thing like no pain, no gain type of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
I almost think the common theme is that you lose respect for them, you lose trust for them.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. They lose all credibility towards them that the
That's
legacy
true.
would have had of. He was this amazing athlete that probably inspired all these kids and people to get into cycling and to exceed and push their limits and do well. That they look back at that and go, well, how do I trust that that's even something I should be doing?
Yes. I
Yeah.
agree.
That's
Anyway.
that's super sad and unfortunate. So on that same line, I mean, you touched on the fact, Susan, that it affected you when you found out
Yeah.
that Jane Fonda had clearly lied about it, and I'm sure as the same it affected a lot of people with Neil Armstrong's situation when they probably followed his
Lance.
years and years.
Lance.
What?
Lance, not Neil.
Yeah.
Oh, Lance, thank you. Guys, I haven't slept in 4 days, so forgive me and please correct me because this is just where my brain's at right now. So thank you. So along with that, they had a question about Armstrong organized and led what was perhaps the most sophisticated and comprehensive cheating program in the history of sports. Who suffered from his cheating, number one, and what were the costs that he and them both paid for that cheating?
Yeah.
Say the question again.
The question was, Armstrong organized
Just the
and led
last
what
part.
was perhaps the most sophisticated and comprehensive cheating program in the history of sports. Who suffered from his cheating? So number one is who suffered from his cheating, and number two was what were the costs to both him and to the people that were involved?
Well, the main and most obvious cost is that he was stripped of all his titles. So were all the guys that did the stuff with him. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's that's their big cost for them. And now they're being sued and have to give back money and all kinds of things like that. I mean, they've all had to pay settlements.
Yeah, I think the ones that, sorry for being late, guys. I just got connected, but regarding that question, I think the ones that suffered the most were I agree with that, the competitors, because well, other people strive and try to do their best in order to achieve something. It's not fair that someone do it in the wrong way. So I think the most affected ones, or the one that suffered the most, are the other competitors, I think.
Why do you think that? Yeah, I'm curious. Why do you think that they were affected the most instead of maybe the doctors that participated on his team or his family?
Well, I think probably their families knew that, well, probably, but I think, I don't know, when someone tried to do their best and try to, I don't know, to practice probably for more than a year, I don't know, I can think on those ones, and probably I can think on them and being the most affected, I think.
Okay.
You know, someone I think probably suffered a lot was this Floyd Landis.
Yeah.
He was really young, and he came in onto Armstrong's team. You know, like about 19. And you think about a 19-year-old boy. He's going into this professional thing. He just totally ruined his career, if you think about it. He had no chance to really. A 19-year-old kid is going to follow whatever he's being told. You know, most likely, very few will have the strength to like turn and walk away from that. So
Well,
you know, that was a big thing.
We're seeing the same thing right now with this Harvey Weinstein and all of these other people that cheated people out of their morals, basically, and lied about it, but were so powerful that they crippled other people to the point where they couldn't do anything about it for years and years and years. So people are affected for a lifetime when those things happen to them.
Well, think about Landis. I mean, Armstrong was probably his hero at the time. I mean, he was at the top of the sport. He was getting on that team.
Yeah.
You
And,
know,
how,
I
and
think
how do you speak up against him? That would be very difficult. You're this little 19-year-old. How can you speak up against Lance Armstrong?
Yeah, and one thing too is when somebody has that power,
Yes.
it's hard to. You've got to use your power wisely. I mean, if you think about it in a business perspective, if you're a business leader and you're in charge, you've got to be careful how you handle things, how you do things. That's something that we can learn from.
Michelle, were you going to say something?
I think there's another another group of people that we really haven't discussed, though. We're talking about the people immediately associating with them. But what about the hundreds of thousands, millions, whoever was all excited because they thought he was this amazing person, and then that crash when all the lies came out, people based their lives around their heroes. And so then they suffer as well because they realize that what they've done, or what they were supporting, was that lie, and they'll suffer in ways that we may not know about.
I think that's I've been learning a little bit and reading some books about trauma and things like that, just because it's an interesting subject to me. And one of the things that they associate with trauma is even just a negative thing happening in your life, or not feeling like you belong, or having something like ripped out from underneath you that is no longer a steady truth and consistency in your life. That is actually trauma that like affects your psychological, your emotional, your physical well-being, and ability to be able to do things for others or for yourself. So, I mean, I think it could have had us, like you said, I hadn't thought about that, Michelle, but like a much more significant cost. I mean, yes, it cost these other men that he went with, like this Floyd and all these other people. It cost them either their careers, their families, their awards, their money, it cost them everything because of his influence. But what about everyone else? Yeah,
I'm surprised that his Live Strong campaign is still even around. I'm surprised that didn't even just shut down. And think of all the money that he raised that people gave. I mean, for a good cause, but I don't know.
I think they might have salvaged it by telling him to take a hike, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did get kicked out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
but
did,
what-
but
you know,
still.
Yeah.
Think about what if the doctors had acted in the same way, the researchers that were, doing cancer research using the money that he raised. What if they cheated the same way he cheated?
Hmm.
What would happen to them? Yeah.
No, what would happen to the people who are the recipients of their research?
They die
Yeah.
or pay a lot of money, time, energy, hopes, dreams, time that they
Direct
could
hopes.
have families.
A lot of hopes.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know, a lot of false hope, a lot of angry families.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes I think part of that makes me think of sometimes that, we may not always realize that we're being dishonest because we're being dishonest with ourselves. And he maybe didn't. I thought it was interesting, and maybe I read this someplace else, or it was an article saying that like he didn't see it as that bad, as
Yeah.
it was that bad of a thing, because he felt like anybody could have done it, so he was just choosing to do what he could do to like up his game, and if no one else was going to do it, why is that his fault?
Yeah, he was leveling the playing field. That's what he said.
Yeah.
Right.
He justified himself. I mean, even after when he was admitting what he was doing, he still justified himself, and that's probably why he's still fighting the court cases. Is because,
Yeah. I wonder if he's actually learned his lesson.
Probably,
Right.
probably not.
How does he teach his kids to be honest? Can you imagine?
That would be
Does
tough.
he have kids?
I think.
Yeah, he has 5.
What?
What?
Wow.
What do you do if
Yeah.
if that's your wife? If that's your husband?
Well, the thing is, what's his face? So I can't remember his name all of a sudden. Last name started with an L. He talked about how one of the doping things happened right in front of Armstrong's wife. Like, she was well aware of what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're divorced, and he now has a girlfriend. So he had 3 children with his wife. He now has a girlfriend, and they've had 2 children. The kids are like 7 and 5 or 6 or 7 and 8, somewhere right in there. So, I mean, I saw pictures of them in Hawaii and all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, they're living the good life.
That's sad.
Yeah.
It
Well,
is.
I guess on that same strain, I mean, whether it was the other riders that testified against him, his own wife at the time that probably knew the whole thing, or anybody else, do you think that they were not loyal enough, or were they too loyal?
True.
And why?
Probably more afraid.
I'd say too loyal
I think they were too loyal.
I'll be honest.
because they went into it.
I kind of went back and forth on that one because, on the one hand, I think they're way too loyal in the way that they're too loyal to Armstrong and not the sport itself. But on the other hand, I feel like that if they actually considered Armstrong a friend and were loyal to him in that way, then they would have tried to do something to pull him out of it, or at least stood up to him.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems
Yeah,
like,
that's
okay, they rode as a pack to protect him, and they still
Right.
have the same mentality. Like, we have to protect him, even though he was doing something wrong. What if one of them would have stood up and said, you know what, this is not right, I'm not going to do it. Maybe he would have had the sense to go, oh, yeah, that's not right.
You argue that maybe they were too loyal in some ways out of fear, kind of like what Susan said, that even that the fear caused the fear of their career, the fear of what he would do to them if they did stand up to him.
Yeah.
What would happen to their careers? To their
Well, he could have ruined them in one
Oh, yeah.
fell swoop. I mean, he had so much power over that entire industry that if somebody did speak up against him early on, he would have squashed them.
True.
That's why you get video evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me think of sometimes like in maybe work situations that maybe sometimes we're loyal, not necessarily loyal, but blindly loyal to our boss or blindly loyal to a superior or a colleague or something like that. And maybe we don't see the wrong that we do in the same way, in the same light that we would, because we almost get numb to it, if that is the correct word.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think in some way when probably your boss is not doing something wrong, and I think in some way you can you are aware or you become aware of the situation. So you I think in some way or in some point of that situation you have the option to move away and say, okay, I'm not gonna be part of this. So I think always you're gonna see that situation happening to move away.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that's, I can't remember exactly this series of events, but do you think that's why one of them turned him in the first place instead of just walking away?
Yeah, probably.
But then he started accusing Landis when Landis started doing really well. I'm like, oh, I think he's probably doping.
Yeah, seriously,
Yeah.
back then. I mean,
Like,
my gosh, just two-faced he was.
let it go, you jerk.
All it useless.
Yeah. To try and turn it away from himself. So,
Mhm.
so we would argue, I mean, and I guess is not necessarily the devil's advocate, but if they cared about him that much and if they really were truly loyal to him, why would they turn him in at all?
Well, that's what. Wait, why would they turn him in at all? Is that your question?
Yeah, kind of just like if our argument is that they were too loyal and too faithful to him and to what he was doing and what he had done for their careers, why not just keep riding the train? Why not continue to be loyal to him, and like why even turn him in at all? Even if he was saying anything bad about you, if your career was still going pretty great.
Alex, I have a really important question.
Yes.
Can I see your fingernails?
Yes, you can. Let me show you. And I'll do you one better. I actually do them myself.
Cool.
Nice.
That is
Sorry, I'll show you this way.
You know, everybody else has to be quiet so I can see them.
So see,
Yep,
Yeah,
those are
if
cute.
you're not quiet, it'll affect the vision.
Shh, Russell.
And-
Okay, where's the other hand?
and then the other hand looks the same. I did the same on both hands this year.
Cute.
So you're gonna need to change it for Christmas, all right?
Yep.
Oh, Christmas? Oh my goodness. The nails I pull out on Christmas are like insane. Sorry, totally off topic, but last year I get really excited about this, guys. I do people's nails for fun. It's a bad habit. Bad
Gosh,
hobby.
I wish I could send mine to you.
If you I do them for free. I literally just find so much joy in doing it that it like brings my life joy. Last year I legitimately painted Christmas trees, Santa ornaments, and like gold stars on my friend's nails for fun. It was the best thing ever. So I'll show you my
Where do you live?
I live in Orem, Utah.
Oh, a little far for me.
Yeah.
Where do you live?
Although I will be passing through there. Our son graduates from BYUI in Rexburg on December 15th.
Hey,
And then we're going to drive through to Colorado, and then I'll fly home from there.
I live right off the freeway. I live 5 minutes off the I-15.
Wow.
That's what's close to that Krispy Kreme. I think I love
I
that
live
Krispy
like
Kreme.
2 exits before the Krispy Kreme.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
Is it a factory where you can buy them warm?
Yes.
We have one not far from here.
Yeah, it's
Bad-
one at my house, actually, technically speaking. So.
Okay, anyway, Alex, your question.
Well, my nails, even though they are super fun. Sorry, fun tangent. But what? No, I want you to.
Anyway, so yeah, anyway, what I was going on with that was just like, I think in a way that you're right, like maybe they were being too loyal, like they weren't loyal in the way that they turned him in. But I know for me, it's like, I don't know, maybe I've got a weird sense of like what like true loyalty is, because I think of my dad, And I know that if I was breaking the law, my dad would turn me into the police because he knows that that's what's best for me.
Right.
Yep.
And so in a way, I think if they were truly loyal to Armstrong and what he could be, they would have turned him in a long time ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Loyalty beyond what you might deem as just like, you know, loyalty to a person, but loyalty to, you know, specific ideals. If they had like exercised that kind of loyalty to him, then I feel like that never would have escalated as far as it did.
I agree.
Yes.
Well, one thing we can say about loyalty, though, is like Armstrong didn't have any. Because when Hamilton left the group, Armstrong actually turned him into the people for drugs, because Tyler Hamilton went to a different company, Place to Race. And so Hamilton was informed that Armstrong had contacted the UCI to complain about Hamilton's performance and insinuated that doping aided his results because he was doing well in his new area. So he was definitely not loyal at all.
No.
Armstrong.
No.
People like that, I just want to
Go ahead,
push
Russell.
off a cliff or something. No, sorry, that's extreme. Never mind. No, I'm sorry. That's not. I don't really mean that. But like, I don't know. When I just hear all this stuff, I'm just like, I don't know. He's one of those people that I would not feel bad to hear that he was just like living on the streets now. Even though, and that's not very Christ-like of me. But I really need. I should repent. But like, I could totally see this guy like me not feeling bad, him getting his just desserts. I don't know. Anyway.
Oh my God.
Sorry. You're just gonna like see this video and be like, this guy's got issues.
Yeah.
Wow, what is with those people?
He's a sicko.
Well-
Oh, the psychology department.
What were you going to say, Angela?
I was just going to say, well, he hasn't learned his lesson. So if he doesn't at some point, like, really become sincere in what's happened, you probably will see him get his just due, you know, at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If not in this life,
Yeah,
definitely in the next.
yeah.
that's right. I'd like to rescind my previous statements because, you know, vengeance is the Lord's, not my place to.
Not even really vengeance, but justice, I guess.
Mhm. I'll just go this with you.
Okay, so and maybe we've kind of already touched on this just a smidge, but they asked us to think about maybe where you witnessed a leader, formal or informal, make a decision for others that made you uncomfortable, maybe in either your personal life or in a work situation. What was the situation and how did you feel about it?
Well, I think Susan had a good example that she told about, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mean my one at work
Yeah.
Yeah.
with the Senate? I did send the chair of the Senate a quick email yesterday telling him thanks. It's funny, I never heard back from him though.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen there.
I don't know, but I told my supervisor that if it goes through, I'll just resign from the Senate because I just don't want to be affiliated with how that looks. I don't think it'll come to that though. I think enough people were opposed that it probably won't go anywhere.
Mhm.
Well, the good thing is that you were brave enough to stand up and say something, and then other people who felt the same way as you but
Fault I
weren't
have.
as brave. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
That's
Yeah.
one of the things I think is great about you, Susan. I have a hard time with that. I have a really hard time standing up for myself when somebody's like, hey, doing something necessarily wrong, even if it doesn't necessarily impact me.
But it's not really right either.
Right.
I think that just comes honestly with life experiences and seeing things that aren't right that maybe you didn't say anything about and you wish you had, but now it's too late. And so eventually you just realize I need to say something about it.
Mm-hmm. You get more, not necessarily set in your ways in a bad way, but you realize what matters and what doesn't matter, and what you're willing to stick up for or not. And you're pretty set on this is what is the way I believe it to be, and this is not.
Probably part of that too comes from parenting. You know, when you try to instill that in your kids, then you think, how can I not do that myself if I'm teaching my children to do that at the same time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was a great example. Does anybody? I'll share one if nobody else has one, but does someone else have one to share that maybe you've had an experience with that, or you know someone that's had an experience with that?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, hold on. Sorry, I have to plug my computer in. So this isn't probably as anything as like, it's not morally wrong, but sorry, hold on. At my last job, part of the reason I left, so last Christmas I was working there and it was a sales job. And I had asked, my mom, as you all know, has cancer, and we weren't like, it was kind of in and out for a while. She like, it's like, cause she's had it before, that like, we just don't know how much time she's ever going to have left. And my parents actually came down specifically to spend time with me for Christmas, and they were only going to be here for like 5 days. And at the time I was only seeing my parents like twice a year. And so my boss decided to, he didn't ask everyone, but my boss's boss said, hey, it would be great if you guys would, he said, hey, would you talk to everybody and see if everybody would mind working Christmas Eve and the day after Christmas? Like pretty much work the whole week of Christmas except for Christmas Day. And I was like, what? And he basically agreed that everyone would work for Christmas, and he knew that I had requested that time off for over a week. And he also took it away from everyone else in my department without asking anybody, and just did it because he felt like he could, and he had that authority and the power to do whatever the heck he wanted. And so I spent Christmas pretty much. I ended up even having to work a part of Christmas, and had to spend that at work because of just some choices he made. So I ended up quitting my job because of that and other things. But I was just like, that's not an environment I want to work in where somebody else makes choices for me. So
Yeah.
Is Annie having a hard time getting in?
I just resent her the link, so let's see if that'll work.
I was going to say, I sent the link to the email and to the group, correct? Or am I crazy?
Yeah, hopefully we'll be seeing her in just a second.
Oh, is that what all the pinging is about?
Yeah.
Huh?
I'm looking around to see what else do I have open here that might be bothering me.
Oh, that's funny. So one of the other questions they ask about those experiences, think about a situation where you witness talented followers follow a leader into an uncomfortable or bad situation. What was the situation? What were the results? And did anyone stand up and say anything? That could maybe be even like a real life outside of your own experience where you've seen something like that happen.
I got one on that.
Okay.
So my mission is over in the Minnesota-Minneapolis mission. We had a rock star mission president, and he like totally made the culture of our mission like obedience. Like that was the big thing in our mission, was being obedient, to the point where all the missionaries, like missions around it, knew that that was the thing, was like, oh, they're the obedient mission, you know. But turns out, like in one of the northern parts of the state, there was a sister training leader. So she was, you know, her job is to train all the new, like brand new missionaries, and basically is one of the leaders for the sister missionaries. Turns out, so she'd been sneaking out at night and to go hang out with this one dude, and her trainees were covering for her basically.
Wow.
And so we heard about it. Like they didn't say who it was, but all of us who, you know the mission knew who it was. And she had trained a few people while this was going on, and they were aware of it too. And so the trainee that she had at the time that she got sent home ended up being in my district, in my final district there in my mission. And she was having a hard time. Like, she felt so guilty all the time, and it really affected how she viewed herself and how she viewed other people. And that was just her. There was other sisters that she had trained that had been part of it as well. And so, but because she was the leader, they were brand new, they didn't know what to do, and they just kind of went along with it, and it affected their self-esteem, and it really hurt them. And so Yeah.
And that's such a long term. I mean, that's supposed to be one of the greatest experiences of your life. And now they're tainted, all of them. That's what they're going to remember about their mission, sadly.
Yeah. I guess not. I guess another mission story. My brother served his mission in Ghana, and which is kind of a rough area of the world, anyways. And yeah, and he his mission president was kind of an interesting man. I actually got to meet him because he was in our current ward for a while since my brother had been released, or had gotten home from his mission, I guess technically speaking. And my brother had a mission companion that pulled a knife on him multiple times and threatened to take his life. And my brother went through the proper channels and basically just called the mission president and said, hey, this is going on. I need help. What do I do? And the mission president said, oh, well, it must just be a you problem. You just need to be more righteous. You just need to be this, that, and the other. And all these crazy things, and just says, oh, you'll be fine. Elder, you just need to be a better example. You need to learn how to deal with it. And just made this really powerful choice that has since impacted my brother's life in the negative for 3 years now. Because of a choice, and he stood up against it, and it happened to be that in one of the APs actually went up, just vetoed what the mission president said and emergency transferred him to another area. Because he was like, well, if the mission president's not going to do anything about it, you're not safe, and I need to take responsibility for you. So he objected to what the mission president of all people said and just said, look, I transferred the kid. Sorry.
And what did you say?
So what happened to the missionary?
What was that?
Since your brother's been home, what's his situation?
My brother has had anger and frustration and pretty much depression and other issues about things, to the extent that he no longer is, as a result of his mission, we're pretty almost positive, as a result of lots of things, he doesn't speak to my family anymore.
Oh,
wow.
So,
Does he go to church?
As far as we know, but he doesn't speak to any of us. We follow him on Find My Friends. So, but yeah, I guess that's just a key thing of the choices we make and the influence when we have high power of influence. Nobody's perfect, but just that can make a severe impact on anybody's life for the rest of their lives and other people into a ripple, I think. So, I think about those poor girls that you talked about, Russell, that those poor girls, sadly, I think women and girls deal with self-esteem issues anyways. And those things that to think that somebody that was supposed to be someone they could trust does something like that, I can't imagine what kind of pain and untrustworthy attitude they'd have towards others for a really long time.
Mm-hmm. That was hard.
yes.
Yeah, super hard. Sorry, I did not mean to kill the mood with my sad story.
Yeah, I'm feeling really depressed.
I know, I'm sorry. That's a really depressing story, but I think I hope it just brings the point home that our choices matter. I think the choices we make and how they affect others really matters.
Yep.
So, for the good or the bad. So, does anybody have any positive stories of when somebody's done something maybe really good and really awesome that made a positive impact on someone's life?
No.
I can share one.
Not at all.
I can share one that happened to me in college. I actually went to Rick's College, so that tells you how many years ago.
And you're there again now.
And I'm here again now. It was kind of nice to finish. I said back then it needed to be a 4-year school, Anyway, I was living in the Hillcrest Apartments, and there were 6 of us, and they're 2-story apartments, not 1 level, so you have to go upstairs to the bedrooms. And they all had boyfriends except me, and one of them, every time he was there, would be upstairs. So I kind of got tired of walking out of the shower wrapped in a towel right into him. It was not the highlight of my day. And so I finally confronted them. They wouldn't change, so I moved. I actually found another place to live, vacated that apartment, and it made a difference because I had another one of the roommates come to me later and say that things changed once I left because of my actions. So I got to make a positive
Good.
change, even though I didn't stick around for it.
But you could have proved to be a catalyst in not just that one other roommate's life, but maybe that other girl's life that was making those poor choices to realize, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this.
I just know he stopped coming upstairs after that.
Yes.
So there's your positive story.
Thank you.
Well, I will take it.
Awesome.
So on that same vein of kind of like more on the positive side of things, what principles would you say guide your guys' integrity of who you are and how you make correct choices? And I prefer, let's say not the typical answers, because I would personally say, okay, Heavenly Father helps me make choices, but maybe we can elaborate on that a little bit.
Well,
If that's the way you were thinking.
I have an story. Well, going back, but just answering that question. Like I was on my mission as well, and I served my mission in California, in Anaheim, and I was just starting my mission. So one of my there was a big movement there in California about one kind of a store or church. I don't know how to call it, but it was called Ex-Mormons for Jesus. It's a big movement there in California. And my companion really want to get some information there, like like let's go there to see what's going on, what's happening, and I want to get some information. And I was really new, and I said no, but like I was new, and we went there, and but at the moment when he pick up like a pamphlet, like a lady came out of the store, and she was just speaking a lot of things. But the funniest thing is that I had like a week on my mission, and I barely understand the lady. I didn't understand what she was saying, because she was talking in English. So she was talking again the Mormon. Well, after that, like I talked with my companion, and I understand what she was saying. But I really feel bad about it, and we talk with our mission president. But I learned one of the biggest lessons there, because he says something like, don't feel bad, elder, but you have learned now something that and he was specifically like, you now know that there is like literacy pornography. He says something, so you don't need to read that stuff. So just you need to read stuff authorized from the church. So like sometimes in some situations we can become followers of someone, but when you are in those situations, I think you can learn big lessons. So those lessons help you to be strong and don't do those things again. But that's a big lesson for me, to don't become a follower, and just to do the right things that I know, well, that actually are right. But well, that's one of my stories.
Yeah.
Well,
Hey,
thank
I got a
goodness.
question for you, Theo.
Sorry?
You served in the Anaheim mission. Were
Yeah, I
you ever
served
in
in
any
the-
of the Fullerton wards? Because I grew up in Fullerton.
Well, actually, most of my mission I serve in a Spanish ward, so
Okay.
I didn't
Yeah,
have
you were in my neck of the woods. That's my home area.
Oh, how cool.
Nice.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. I think that just instills the fact that, the choices we make matter, and learning from them, like Lance Armstrong has shown that he hasn't learned from his mistakes. So I think the way we'll end today is, maybe everyone could answer this and we'll all go down the line, but how do you personally measure your life, and how will you measure success? And it doesn't have to be long, but just like maybe like just your thoughts on that. Like, and I think we've talked a lot about the idea of what's important, what's not important, and the impact it makes, but how in the end do you personally want to, in one thing, measure your life? And how do you measure the success of it? So, Angela, you show up the first on my screen. If that's
Okay.
with everyone.
Well, I guess I try. What I try now is I try to treat others maybe as I would see the Savior treat them. I mean, that's kind of something I try to focus on. I'm sure I don't do it right, but that's kind of something that's really been a big thing for me the last few years. Is recognizing that everyone is a son or daughter of God, and they have value. Sometimes we see people on the streets in stores and places, and we might start thinking something about them, a judgmental type thing. And so whenever I do that, I try to cross that out and think about them as a son or daughter of God. And so if I can do that, if I can learn to treat others, love others as a Savior would, I think then I would be successful, in life.
Well, the two great commandments: love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, might, mind, and strength. And the second is to love thy neighbor. So I think that'd be a pretty good way to measure your life. So, what about you, Karen? You're next on my list.
My biggest drive is I love to help people. So I think if I get to the end of my life, and it's not necessarily taking casserole dishes to some, those are good, but doing things for the right reason, because they need help, and because I love them. Kind of the similar to what Angela was saying. And my family is really important to me. And so our symbol for our family is no empty chairs, meaning no empty chairs in heaven. For me, to have all my family in heaven would be like the best thing in the world, I think.
I love that. I think there's probably no greater wish that we all have than to have no empty seats in heaven. So that's really awesome. Michelle, you're next.
Hang on. Yes. Sorry, my husband starts talking to me right when you ask me to speak. Go figure.
we knew that was your husband.
I knew you weren't pushing me. It's fine. My feelings aren't hurt. I'm not going to cry later. It's fine.
All right. So there's actually two quotes that I thought of when I was answering this question. The first was by President David O. McKay, and it said, "No other success can compensate for failure in the home." And the other quote was actually by Randy Pausch. If you've ever watched or read the last lecture that he does. And
that was really good. Sorry.
I actually have the book. But one of the quotes in it is, "We cannot change the cards we are dealt, just how we play the hand." Because it kind of goes with the other one as far as how we act and how, we live our life to make our lives a success. With President with President McKay's quote, "No success can compensate for failure in the home," it reminds I try to go by that, because my idea of success is having a happy family. Okay, that's never going to happen all the time, but but if I can teach them right, if I can use, play the hand that I've been dealt to teach them how they're supposed to live their lives so that they can be happy and successful in whatever manner they choose, then my life is a success.
That's really awesome. A pretty good way to measure it. You guys are all giving really awesome answers. Hey, Russell, you got to live up to that. You're next.
Well, no pressure, right?
No.
So, kind of goes along with that too, because I was thinking about when I was writing up my answers for this question for the case study. The things that came to my mind were, am I meeting my responsibilities as a husband? Am I meeting my responsibilities as a father? I'm not a dad yet, but soon. And then, and am I meeting my responsibilities as a priesthood holder? And just by looking at those aspects, those encompass my job. It encompasses how I feel about others. And obviously, I'm working on loving everybody by my comments for about, Mr. Armstrong. That got some things to work on.
Yeah.
But I figure, but if I can just analyze those areas, like my meeting my responsibilities as husband and father, and my meeting my responsibilities as a priesthood holder, then I'll be constantly improving and meeting my and doing my callings and improving. And so those are my go-to standards.
I love that. I think that's especially as a priesthood holder, I'm sure, like measuring your life against that, like how are you using your priesthood? That's it. I mean, along with the other things you mentioned, that's a huge deal. I mean, that's a huge not burden, that's a huge responsibility and right that you have like earned to keep. So I think that's awesome. Okay, Theo, you're next. And you're on mute, man.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's kind of the same. I think one of the important things that I have in my life is priesthood, and to be honest with myself and also my family and how I use it for service other people around me is how I measure it. So it is really important for me to measure it in that way, because like I mentioned in couple of 2 weeks ago, my wife was sick, so I gave her a blessing. So that was kind of a measure of my life, because if I was not prepared for that situations, well, I know I can fail to my family and people around me. So for me, that is a good measure uh, of my life to improve, to be always honest with myself and honor the priesthood that I have.
I love that. I think the really beautiful thing about that, and even in the priesthood and blessing, somebody said to me once, they're like, as long as you're living the way that God asked you to live and you're doing the absolute best you can, God's going to make sure that even if you're not perfect, that person gets the blessings that they need because you're doing the best that you can, because that's what the Lord asked, regardless of you being perfect or not. So I really love that. I'll go too. I don't think this has been something I've actually been thinking about a lot about for the last months since like the middle of the summer. And especially with my mom, and just like, how am I going to measure my life? If I died tomorrow, how would I measure my life? And what would my life have been measured off of? So I think kind of along the same lines that you guys had said about, what I want to know, how many people at the end of the day, how many people's lives did I leave a footprint on their heart, or leave a footnote and have a footnote in their life? I don't want like some header or a chapter or even a paragraph. Like, how many people's lives did I leave a footnote that made a positive impact in their life? And as a result, it sounds morbid, but how many people are going to show up to my funeral? Because I mean, how many people are going to like that I made such an impact on their life that they want to be there to like show I guess their, I don't even know what you call it, their appreciation for my life. And that I don't know, I'd like to have, I don't know, I have this funny thing that I'd love to touch as many people's lives as I could, and have a full room of thousands of people at my funeral. Not just like friends and family, but that my husband and I, and that we touched so many people's lives that we left a footprint on and a mark on their lives. So I think that matters a lot, to bring more than just my soul back to Heavenly Father at the end of the day. So
Cool.
yeah. Well, I think that was a pretty good positive note to leave our group on today. I'm glad that wasn't a bit on a sad note. But does anyone else have anything to add before we close?
Just don't forget to do the wilderness survival thing.
Yes.
And you guys are awesome. You've left a footprint on me.
Oh,
True story.
you guys are awesome. You guys have been so great. So, Karen, I'm going to stop the broadcast.